So if you make the fine large enough, they will continue the censorship, but they will amp it up. Australia escalating the censorship there. I covered how Canada was making more speech and journalism illegal. I've covered the way the U.S. is doing that. And now here's more on Australia from Caitlin Johnstone. Australia keeps escalating its censorship and propaganda campaign. There's a frenzied rush by the Australian political media class to both propagandize Australians as quickly as possible into supporting preparations for war with China and to ram through legislation that facilitates the censorship of online speech. Australia's Communications Minister, Michelle Rowland, is set to release draft legislation imposing hefty fines on social media companies who fail to adequately block misinformation and disinformation from circulation in Australia. Now, I'm sure many of you already know what I'm about to say, but what do you think your mainstream, what do you think your corporate shills who are in the Australian government, who are in the US government, what do they view as misinformation, as disinformation, right? They view everything I'm saying to you as disinformation. They view everything that questions the standard talking points coming out of the corporate anus that just shits it onto your screen. They view all of that as misinformation. If it's outside of that anus, then it is called misinformation. So basically anything that's true, anything that's true is called misinformation. And now, under this new law, which I'm sure if it goes well, the U.S. will pick this up probably, but they want to fine these social media platforms for allowing that stuff to even be posted. We're already shadow banned into oblivion. I mean, I have like 0.1% of my followers actually seeing anything I post, and yet that's not enough. And that's not enough in Australia. And Caitlin Johnstone actually is Australian, and so her stuff could be even more censored, heavily censored. And basically, these platforms would be fined. Let's see. The maximum penalty for systemic breaches of the registered code, which is what they're calling it, would be $2.75 million or 2% of global turnover, whichever is higher. The maximum penalty for breaching an industry standard would be $6.88 million or 5% of a company's global turnover. In the case of Facebook's owner Meta, for example, the maximum penalty could amount to a fine of more than $8 billion. So do you think that Facebook, as repressive as it already is, if Australia says, hey, we put it into law, if you allow disinformation or misinformation on your platform, we will fine you $8 billion. Do you think Facebook's going to suppress those things even more, delete even more accounts? Absolutely. They want money. That's why Facebook exists, is for money. So if you make the fine large enough, they will continue the censorship, but they will amp it up. And of course, at first, this is done against things that most you and I would support. So you take pro-Nazi comments, you take white supremacy, you take racist shit, and you censor that. And then you say, see, it's working. It's going great. We censor these racist comments. But of course, that's just the beginning. Then it's used against me and you and what we're allowed to talk about and what we're allowed to say. And she shows some examples of already tweets have been banned in Australia. And it gives you a little, if you try to go to them, it gives you a little warning. It says, this tweet has been withheld in Australia in response to a legal demand. So these tweets were reportedly hidden from Australians on the platform at the behest of the Australian government. Australians could wind up seeing much more of this sort of Australia-specific censorship from social media platforms if this misinformation legislation goes through, or they could just start censoring it for everyone. I want to get to where she wraps it up. Propaganda and censorship are two of the most important tools of the imperial narrative control. And it's very telling that Australia is ramping them both up as the nation is being transformed into a weapon of the US empire to use against China. Steps are being taken to ensure that the Australian populace will be on board with whatever agendas the empire has planned for us in the coming years. And judging from what we're seeing right now, it isn't going to be pretty. And we're seeing this ramp up of censorship because here's the good news. It's showing the weakness of the empire. And I include Australia when I say the empire because Australia is part and parcel to the US empire. The Five Eyes really is the US empire. Australia, Britain, Canada, the US, and New Zealand. Now, of course, we have other vassal states that we push around, but those are the key components of our empire. And so this is showing the weakness of the empire. If the empire is so afraid of speech, of what I'm doing right here, of having a live stream like this, of having videos like this, that they need to stop those at all costs and fine people for even allowing it. And they turn against their own so-called stances, so-called beliefs of freedom of speech in order to fight against that speech, then it shows their weakness and it shows they're scared. And I believe they are. I believe the US empire is scared. And it's scared because people like you and me are fighting back against this unipolar world where we are willing to kill innocent people around the globe every day, every single day. That's what our system is. And that's what it endorses. And the US government is willing to do that every day. And we do it via bombs, sure, but we also do it via economic sanctions. We do it via environmental destruction. We do it via climate crisis. We do it via pollution. We do it via all of these different ways that we are crushing and destroying lives around the world right now. And they're scared. They're scared that we may evolve, that you and I may evolve and go, you know what? I think there could be something better. I think there could be some sort of world where we live in peace. I think there could be some sort of world where the birds aren't dying. I think there should be some sort of world where there's insects still, and sex as well as insects, and just sweet, sweet lovemaking. I don't know why I had to take it there, but that's where we ended up.